Your sales style is too soft, Jason muttered, waving me off as security collected my things. Just like that, my 16-year career at the family dealership ended, before the doors even opened that Monday morning. My name is Greg Sanders, 41 years old. I was the senior sales director at Sanders Auto Group in Sacramento, the business my father built from the ground up. I wasn't just a name on the payroll. I trained every sales rep, built trust with generations of customers, and never missed a target. But none of that mattered to my younger brother, Jason, who had taken over the dealership just 3 days earlier. He stood behind our dad's old desk. Though everything that had once been familiar was gone, the framed fishing photos, replaced, the sturdy leather chair, swapped out for some chrome monstrosity. Times are changing, he told me. We need numbers, not relationships. I didn't argue, just watched as Pete, our longtime security guard, whose daughter I'd helped get her first car, awkwardly packed up my desk into a cardboard box. Jason didn't even look at me as he said, "You'll get 2 months of severance. Professional courtesy from my own brother." Outside, I placed the box on my truck, looked up at the sign, Sanders Auto, and felt a strange calm. My phone buzzed. A message from Diane at Titan Motors. Meeting still on for 2 p.m. I smiled for the first time that day. "Definitely," I replied. Because what Jason didn't know was that I'd already signed the future. I pulled out of the lot and didn't look back. At least not with regret. Jason could keep the desk, the ego, and his shiny new chair. What he couldn't keep was something far more valuable: the relationships I'd built over 16 years with clients, partners, and the people who trusted Sanders Auto because of the Sanders in front of them. The meeting with Titan Motors had been in the works for weeks. Diane, the Western regional rep, had approached me directly. "We've watched what you've done with your father's dealership for years, Greg," she said over coffee last month. "Your name carries weight. Not because of marketing, but because people trust you. That's something we can't buy, but we can partner with it." She wasn't offering a job. She was offering a territory. Titan Motors, our biggest supplier for nearly 2 decades, wanted me to become their Western regional distributor, a role that would put me in charge of allocating inventory to 17 dealerships across California, Nevada, and Arizona, including Sanders Auto. At the time, I told her I needed to think about it. My heart was still tied to the dealership, but that changed the moment I overheard Jason in his office late one Friday, laughing on the phone. "We'll clean house once Dad's fully out." Greg's old school, good with customers but behind the times. Time to modernize. That's when I knew. Jason wasn't planning to lead with me, he was planning to erase me, so I signed. 3 days before Jason made it official with security in a cardboard box, I signed the contract with Titan and submitted the paperwork. It was still processing when he fired me. Talk about poetic timing. I drove straight from the dealership to Titan's regional office. Jack Bennett, their VP of sales, greeted me with a handshake and a grin. "You clean out your desk?" he asked. "Sure did," I said, setting the box down beside my new office door. The space wasn't flashy: a desk, a computer, a big map of the Western Territory with colored pins marking each dealership under my supervision. But it was mine. My title was clear: Regional Inventory Distributor at Western U.S., and I had full authority to control vehicle allocation, schedule inventory drops, and prioritize orders within standard guidelines. Jack showed me the system. Clean, intuitive, powerful. "You've got total control of who gets what and when," he said. "But we trust your judgment. We're not in this for short-term wins. We're in this to build stability. That's why we picked you." That first week was a whirlwind. I learned the logistics software, scheduled introductory calls with the dealerships under my purview, and reviewed their histories: who paid on time, who pushed for aggressive discounts, and who invested in long-term relationships. By Thursday afternoon, I got the call I'd been expecting. It was Vanessa from accounting, still at Sanders Auto. Her voice was low, cautious. "Greg, Jason's losing it. We can't get inventory confirmed. Every order gets flagged or delayed. And Titan, well, they're not exactly being helpful." I leaned back in my chair. "Sounds like a supplier issue." "That's why I'm calling you," she said. "You always handled Titan. Nobody here knows who to talk to now." I let the silence stretch. "I don't work there anymore, Vanessa. I know. But customers are waiting. The showroom's half empty." I did feel for her. For the sales staff. For the techs in service. All the folks who depended on the business Jason now ran into the ground by pushing away the very people who held it together. "Tell Jason," I said, "to contact his regional distributor through the proper channels. I'm sure someone will be in touch." 2 hours later, Jason called. I let it go to voicemail. The message, exactly what I expected. Bark demands, not requests. Accusations that I'd sabotaged the ordering system, that I needed to fix it. The next morning I called back. "Sanders Auto, this is Jason," he said, clearly agitated. "Hey Jason, it's Greg. Took you long enough. We need 16 vehicles by Tuesday. Nothing's going through. The system's blocking everything." I kept my voice calm. "Have you spoken with your Titan representative? They keep redirecting me. I need answers." Then asked the regional distributor. "I've been trying. Nobody will tell me who it is." I paused. "It's me, Jason." Silence. "What do you mean you?" "I'm Titan's new Western regional distributor. Your orders go through me now." Another long pause. I could almost hear his jaw tighten. "You're holding our inventory hostage." "No, I'm doing my job." He fumed. "This is because I fired you." "No. This is because I now work for Titan. Your order is under review. Standard for new dealership ownership. Could take 2, maybe 3 weeks." Jason dropped the bravado, tried to soften his tone. "Greg, this is family. Dad built this place for both of us. I remember. And like you said, times are changing. You sobi," he snapped. "You're doing this on purpose." "I'll personally review your order," I said, keeping my voice level. "Have a good day, Jason." I hung up. That should have been the end of it. But my phone buzzed again within minutes. Dad's number. He was calling from Montana. "Greg, what the hell is going on?" "Time to tell the truth." Dad's voice was calm, but I knew the weight behind it. "Jason just called," he said. "Said you're sabotaging the business." I exhaled slowly. "No, Dad. I'm just doing my new job." "Jason fired me." "You know that?" There was a pause. I could hear the wind through the cottonwoods up by the lake in Flathead County. "He told me it was mutual." I let out a short laugh, but there wasn't anything funny about it. "You really think I'd walk away from the company we built together without a reason?" "I'm trying to stay out of it," Dad said carefully. "That's why I gave him control, so I could retire. I didn't expect this kind of fallout." "Then maybe you should have asked a few more questions before handing him the keys." Another pause. "You're not wrong," he admitted. "But now he's in trouble, Greg. He doesn't know how to manage supplier relationships. He sure as hell doesn't understand how you kept Titan loyal all these years." "Because I treated them like partners, not like vending machines." "I'm not calling to take sides," he said. "I'm calling to ask if you're willing to help for the sake of the business." The family. The word family hung in the air like smoke. Jason and I hadn't been close in years, not since he came back from business school thinking PowerPoints could replace grit. I took a breath. "I'm not shutting Sanders Auto out. His orders are being reviewed like any new dealership under new management. It's Titan protocol. I know how it works," Dad said. "I just need to know if there's a path forward." "There is," I said. "But it comes with conditions." He didn't respond, so I laid them out. "Jason has to stop pretending I'm the enemy. If he wants Titan support, he needs to follow their process. If he can't do that, he'll lose access to inventory and fast. And if he can," I paused, "then we talk. But not as brothers, not even as co-workers. As two businessmen with a shared legacy they're either going to protect or destroy." The next few days were quiet. Jason didn't call again. Vanessa texted once. "He's in meetings all day. Hasn't spoken to anyone since the Titan call." That was fine. Let him stew. Meanwhile, I got to work finalizing allocations for the quarter. The dealerships that had earned my trust over the years, places like Horizon Auto in Reno and Silverline Motors in Flagstaff, were getting their full inventory on time. They'd built their reputations on honesty, not cutthroat games. By Friday, my phone rang again. Caller ID Sanders Auto office line. It wasn't Jason. It was my dad. "Greg," he said, "I'm flying down. I want to meet in person." "Just you?" "Just me." We met the next day at the old diner off Route 14, the one with the faded red booths and the waitress who never aged. Dad looked tired, older than he had 6 months ago. Retirement hadn't relaxed him. It had just removed the structure. "Coffee?" I asked. He nodded. The waitress poured 2 mugs. We sat in silence for a minute, watching the traffic roll by. "I made a mistake," he said finally. I didn't say anything. When your mom passed, he continued, I threw myself into the business. You kept me grounded. Jason, he was young. And I think I tried to make up for not being there for him earlier by giving him too much now. Giving him the business. Giving him the benefit of the doubt. He's smart, but not seasoned, and he thought legacy was something he could edit. I stirred my coffee. Legacy isn't a brand, Dad. It's the people who built it. The customers. The techs in service. You. Me, he nodded. I want you both at the table. Not one or the other. That's not up to me anymore. But would you come back? He asked. Not to work under him, but as a partner. Equal stake. I raised an eyebrow. Jason won't go for that. He might not have a choice, Dad said quietly. Because here's the truth, Sanders Auto isn't stable. Sales are down 22% this quarter. Without Titan inventory, that number's about to nosedive. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'll take the business back, temporarily. Reinstate equal ownership. Get you both in a room with a mediator if that's what it takes. I leaned back in my seat, arms folded. And if Jason refuses? Dad didn't hesitate. Then he can cash out. I blinked. You'd make him sell? I gave him a chance, Dad said. But this business, our name, matters more than his pride. I looked out the window, the sun catching the edges of a dusty old Ford parked by the curb. I remembered painting that same model with Dad when I was 15. The same one we rebuilt in the garage after Mom's funeral. The shop, the grit, the grease under our nails. That was where the real business lived. You sure about this? I asked. I'm sure. I took a sip of coffee and held out my hand. Then let's do it right this time. Jason wasn't in the conference room when Dad and I arrived Monday morning. I wasn't surprised. We'd asked him to be here at 900 sharp. By 9:12, the door was still shut, and the only sound was the old clock ticking above the dry erase board that still had a faded Q3 strategy sketch from 2 weeks ago. Dad sighed, arms crossed. He's never been on time for the hard stuff. At 9:15, Jason finally walked in. No tie, wrinkled dress shirt. Eyes bleary like he'd slept in his car or not at all. I noticed the faint tremor in his hand as he set down his laptop and sat across from me. I almost didn't come, he muttered. I almost didn't invite you, I replied. Dad cleared his throat. All right, enough. We're not here to rehash every bad decision. We're here to salvage this business while there's still a business to salvage. Jason looked at me, eyes rimmed with something between regret and defiance. I was trying to modernize. I thought you were stuck in the past. No, I said. I was building relationships. That's what brought Titan in the first place. You chased numbers. You forgot people. Silence. Look, Jason said. You want back in? Fine. Just don't expect me to sit here and watch you take over everything again. Dad stood. You're both going to stop. Right now, he said, steel in his voice. You think I gave either of you this company just to watch you tear it in half? Neither of us said a word. I've reinstated shared ownership, he continued. Effective immediately, 50-50 split, and we're moving forward as partners. Jason's face fell. You can't just do that. I did do that, Dad said, sliding a folder across the table. Lawyer filed it this morning. Jason hesitated, then slowly opened it. His eyes scanned the contents. He looked like someone reading their own eulogy. I can't believe this. You can be mad, Dad said, but you're not in charge anymore. Not until you prove you're ready? I turned toward him. You want to rebuild this company. Start with trust. No more secret side deals. No more vendor switches without discussion. And from now on we talk, before decisions, not after disasters. Jason looked at me, and for the first time in years, his eyes held something that wasn't arrogance. It was fear. But also relief. Okay, he said. Okay. We spent the next week auditing every contract, every vendor deal, every supply chain risk point. I took back control of the Titan relationship. But this time, Jason shadowed every call. He watched me negotiate delivery schedules with regional reps he'd never bothered to meet. He sat through a 2-hour call with the supply director from Texas, who started the conversation asking where Greg the Bulldog had been hiding the last 3 months. By the end of that call, Jason wasn't taking notes. He was just listening. On Thursday, we held a joint call with Titan's Western distribution team. They laid it out plainly. If the two of you can't present a united front by the end of the quarter, Sanders Auto is off our priority list. Jason didn't flinch. You'll have our updated strategy documents by next week. Together. After the call, he stayed behind in the conference room. Greg, he said, why didn't you cut me out completely? Because Dad didn't raise quitters. And because deep down, you're not a bad businessman. Just an inexperienced one who thought a few spreadsheets could replace grit. He chuckled. Fair. And because this place, this name, it matters to more than just you and me. By the end of month 2, our numbers were back up. Titan Re confirmed our preferred status. The quarterly review went off without a hitch. More importantly, our team, folks in service bays, in the showroom, in accounting, stopped walking on eggshells. Jason even joined me for lunch with the old sales director, Dan, who had threatened to resign under Jason's early days. They laughed about it over chicken fried steak, and for once I saw the kid I'd grown up with. Not the MBA. One morning, Dad stopped by the office with 2 cups of coffee and a box. What's that? I asked. He smiled and opened it. Inside were 2 embroidered jackets. One said, Sanders Auto Greg. The other, Sanders Auto Jason. Time to start acting like a team again, he said. Things weren't perfect. We disagreed often. On advertising, on bonus structures, even on the color of the new service uniforms. But the difference now was how we disagreed. Openly. Respectfully. With shared goals. 6 months in, we sat down to review our year-to-date performance. We were up 12% year-over-year. Inventory flow had stabilized. Titan had referred us to 2 smaller dealerships looking for mentorship in fleet management. I looked across the desk at Jason. Not bad for a couple of guys who nearly tore the place in half. He laughed. Not bad for a guy I tried to replace. You're lucky I like redemption stories. That weekend, I drove out to the lake house with Dad. We grilled steaks and watched the sun dip below the tree line. You did good, kid, he said. We did good. He raised his glass. To the next generation. To the right kind of legacy, I replied. Because it wasn't just about taking back what I built. It was about teaching someone how to carry it forward. 3 months after the rebuild, the lot was full again. Not just with cars, but with energy. The team walked taller, smiled more, joked in the service bays like they used to before fear crept in. Jason had finally earned their trust, not because he demanded it, but because he showed up. Early, often, asking questions instead of giving orders. Listening, not just nodding. And me? I stopped holding my breath every time I walked past his office. He still made mistakes, but they weren't reckless anymore. They were the kind of missteps you could talk through, laugh about over coffee, and learn from. He even started shadowing the floor managers on Saturdays, wearing the same branded polo and greasy boots as the rest of us. That was when I knew the change wasn't temporary. It was real. One Friday afternoon, as I was closing up the back shop, I found a note taped to my toolbox. Sloppy handwriting, smudged with oil. Thanks for not giving up on me. I get it now. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and slipped it into my wallet. Right next to the photo of my wife and daughter at the Grand Canyon. The 3 people who taught me that strength doesn't come from shouting or swinging first. It comes from standing still when it matters most, and speaking with clarity when the moment is loud. The real shift came 2 weeks later when we held our first Family and Legacy open house, a tradition Dad started back in the early 2000s, but Jason had canceled during his reign of efficiency. We brought it back with some modern updates, food trucks, live music, even a tent where we raffled off a restored '68 Mustang I'd spent the past year rebuilding on weekends. Hundreds came, former customers, new families, old employees, people who had left when Jason took over, many of them back just to say we see what you're doing, and it matters. Jason stood beside me at the raffle, shaking hands and answering questions like a seasoned dealer. At one point, a woman in her 70s pulled him aside. You're Greg's brother, right? Jason smiled sheepishly. Little brother, yeah. Well, she said, tapping his chest lightly with a crooked finger. You've come a long way from that press release nonsense you sent out last year. He actually laughed. Mum, you're not wrong. She leaned in. Good men own their mistakes. Great men fix them. He looked at me after she walked away. Did that feel earned? I nodded. That's because it was. That night, Dad pulled me aside while we cleaned up the lot. You know, he said, I used to think the worst thing that could happen was watching my boys fight over this place. Turns out, the best thing might have been watching you fix it together. I didn't say anything at first. I just handed him a folding chair and looked up at the string lights still flickering under the big oak trees. "You ever think about retiring for real?" I asked him. He chuckled. "Not until you two figure out how to stop calling me every time the printer jams." A month later, I got a letter, an actual letter, from a man named Carl Bennett, owner of Bennett Automotive in Kansas City. He wrote, "Heard through the Titan grapevine what you and your brother pulled off. Impressed doesn't begin to cover it. If you're ever in town, I'd love to buy you lunch. We're trying to turn around a similar mess over here. Could use someone who's walked through fire and came out stronger." That letter made me realize something. What we did wasn't just about saving our family business. It was a blueprint, a story worth sharing. For every dad's son, brother, or partner who's ever been caught between legacy and ego, tradition and progress. Sometimes, rebuilding what's broken isn't about going backward. It's about pulling the best of the past into a future you build together. And if you're still here reading this, maybe you've got your own version of this story. Maybe it's not a dealership. Maybe it's a family bakery, a plumbing business, a ranch that's been in your family since before you were born. Maybe someone younger came along and told you your time was up. Well, let me say this loud and clear: experience is not obsolete. Wisdom does not expire. And when the world forgets that, sometimes you've got to remind them, not with bitterness, not with revenge, but with grace, grit, and a quiet kind of excellence that proves itself over time. If this story hit close to home, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment down below. Tell me what you've built, what you've rebuilt, or what legacy you're fighting to protect. I read every single one. And if you found a piece of yourself in Greg's story, do me a favor, tap that like button, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded that they still matter. Because when the dust settles, it's the ones who kept building that people remember. And we're not done building yet. 3 months later, I gave that jewelry box to my daughter during a quiet afternoon in Denver. She opened it slowly, ran her fingers across the carved roses, and smiled the same way her mother used to when I fixed something around the house without being asked. "Did you make this?" she asked. I nodded. "For your mom. But I think she'd be glad you have it now." It wasn't just a gift. It was a reminder that even when life hands you betrayal, loss, or a pink slip from someone half your age, what you build with care still lasts. When people underestimate your worth, let your work remind them. Experience isn't just about age. It's about showing up day after day, even when no one's clapping. And when the noise fades, it's the steady hands that keep the world running. You are not forgotten. You are not outdated. You are the backbone that built the present and the compass that guides the future. If this story moved you, drop a comment below. Tell us what you've built, what legacy you're passing on. And if you're one of those quiet warriors who keeps everything from falling apart, smash that like, subscribe for more, and share this with someone who needs to know. They still matter, because around here we remember the builders always.